Today, we're going to dig into the hidden struggles that shape who we are at work. And we're going to do it through the really powerful story of one teacher's identity crisis.
So let me just ask you something right off the bat. Who are you when you're at work?
And I don't just mean your job title. For so many of us, who we are professionally, it's a story of conflict, of trying to belong, and just this constant nagging struggle for who you really are in that space.
And to really get a handle on this, we're going to unpack that exact struggle. We'll follow the real-life journey of an English teacher from China named Minfeng. His story, honestly, it gets right to the heart of what so many of us face.
Okay, so to really get Minfeng's world, you have to understand this huge clash happening in English teaching in China at the time. On one side, you've got the traditional method, or TM. Think grammar drills, memorization, text analysis. It got a pretty harsh nickname, deaf and dumb English. Then, on the other side, there's communicative language teaching, or CLT. This was all about interactive activities, conversation, the cool, modern, official way to do things. And Minfeng, he was caught right in the crossfire of this huge ideological battle.
So let's rewind and start at the beginning, when Minfeng was just a student and a total outsider. So Minfeng, he comes from this poor village, right? And he manages to get into this super prestigious Nanda University. You'd think he'd be on top of the world, but no. Instead, he just felt like he completely didn't belong, surrounded by all these sophisticated kids from the city.
And we don't have to guess how he felt, because he tells us in his own words. He wrote, "Compared with them, I was an inert and quiet country bumpkin who was ignorant of this cosmopolitan fad." Wow, you can just feel how isolated he was.
And that feeling, it only got worse because of his struggles in class. His English speaking skills just weren't there, and the university actually, officially, labeled him a deaf and dumb English learner. They put him in special classes. I mean, can you imagine? That's a label that's going to stick with you.
The pressure to perform in that official CLT style was just immense. He and the other students in his situation felt so much stress that they'd literally hide away to study. And he remembers, huddling in the stinking place, we cursed CLT and called it cruel language teaching. That tells you everything you need to know about the resentment that was just brewing inside him.
Okay, let's hit pause on Minfeng's story for just a second, because to really make sense of what's happening to him, we need a little bit of theory to help us out.
So there's this sociologist, Etienne Wenger, who gives us a really useful way to think about this. He basically says our identity isn't this fixed, static thing. It's actually formed in the tension between two big forces, our deep need to belong to a group and our desire to actually shape what that group cares about.
Let's break that down a bit more. Wenger calls it a dual process. First, there's identification. That's simple. It's that feeling of wanting to belong, to be part of the team. But then there's the second part, negotiation of meanings. This is where we try to influence things, to take ownership of our work and have a say in what's important. It's that constant push and pull, right? Between fitting in and being true to ourselves. And that's what actually forges our identity.
Okay, so now that we have that framework in our back pocket, let's jump back into the story and see how this all plays out for Minfeng, the conflicted teacher.
So, believe it or not, after he graduates, Minfeng gets a teaching job at Nanda, the same university. And just look at his career trajectory. It's a super fast, and you can imagine, super pressured rise. He starts out as this kind of marginalized listening teacher, but just 6 years later, he's the director of teaching research. And you can bet that with every single promotion, the pressure from the institution to just fall in line with that official CLT method got stronger and stronger.
And all that pressure, it finally came to a head in this one single traumatic moment. An inspector from the university shows up, unannounced, to observe his class. Minfeng, who deep down still preferred a more traditional way of teaching, totally panicked. His mind just went blank.
After the class, inspector hands him this page just filled with criticisms and says to him so sternly, "Young man, CLT should not be taught like this. You have to work hard on this. Don't ruin the reputation of the CLT course." I mean, that's not just feedback. That's a direct threat to his job, his career, his place in that community.
So what does he do? Well, this whole experience basically forces him to live a double life. In public, he became the perfect employee, the genuine CLT product, the guy who championed the official method. But in private, when he knew no one was watching, he was still a secret believer in the traditional method, and he'd tweak his lessons to fit what he really believed.
And look, this wasn't some comfortable compromise for him. It was causing him deep personal turmoil.
In his own words, he was absolutely disgusted by his dual identity as a faked CLT practitioner and a real self. You can just feel how much that internal conflict was eating him up inside.
And that really brings us to our final section here, what we're calling the never-ending negotiation.
So when you boil it all down, what does Minfang's story really teach us? Well, a few big things. First, that identity is relational. It's totally shaped by the community we're in. It's also a negotiation, a constant push and pull between what we believe and what the world is demanding from us. It's also experiential. It's built from everything we go through, the good and the bad. And maybe the biggest lesson of all is that power shapes identity. The institutions we work for, the hierarchies, they have a massive say in who we are even allowed to be.
When you look at the big picture, Minfang's journey shows us that our professional identity, it's not some final destination that we just arrive at one day. It's a continuous and, often unresolved journey.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about for ourselves. In your own life, where do you feel that tension? The one between who you really are and the role you're expected to play?